Good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very wonderful day today, 15th of July 2022, and a glorious day here in Brisbane right now. 12 degrees and sunny, and it is just so wonderful to have your company on this beautiful day. And today it's Friday as well, so thank God it's Friday, and we'd like to wish a very, very happy birthday to Arpit Singh as well, from Gopia, Queensland, and from Bendigo Bank. So, it's wonderful to have all your company this morning. So we're going to go through our daily news, and then we'll finish off with our daily India report, and of course the what's up in this weekend. So there's lots that's happening on this weekend. As we know, planning is underway for Gopia, Queensland. We'll soon be talking with few people from Gopia, Queensland to see how the plans are progressing. We'll even be talking to the promoter Manmohan Singh from Desi Rocks to find out about how things are progressing, and that we had a big site visit yesterday, and yes, things are looking good. Well, right now let's get on with the news. Well, one of the things that is on everyone's mind, everyone's lips, and is a basis of all conversations around all barbecues at this point in time, is the interest rates. So, well, if you look at the interest rate, it's also linked to the jobs, and so the jobless numbers have come as a shock lately.
Across the country, bosses are desperate for staff, pushing some to advertise big. It's little wonder the latest unemployment figures smashed market expectations.
There's been yet another drop in the unemployment rate in Australia, and it's a pretty significant drop.
This is the lowest unemployment rate since August 1974.
Unemployment fell to 3.5% in June, with almost 90,000 jobs added to the economy last month. There was a slight rise in the participation rate, and underemployment rose to 6.1%. Youth unemployment fell below levels last seen at the start of the pandemic.
The increase in employment is largely driven by the number of women who are employed this month compared to last month. So that's, again, another amazing thing in terms of gender equality, I would say.
Rosemary Paglanawa is one of those benefiting from the jobs boom. After 2 years recovering from back surgery, she found work quickly.
I'm really excited in coming to work every day because I really like it.
The 66-year-old says it's a good time to get back out there.
For those who are injured or stop working, I advise you to come back to work so that you can, your strength will be back and you can exercise. You will not get old.
The historically low unemployment rate isn't likely to last. Inflation's surging globally. It started with fuel and energy, as now everyday items like milk are starting to go up significantly. Central banks are waging war on rising consumer prices by aggressively hiking rates to slow the economy, which could cost jobs.
Last night we saw Canada increase their interest rate to 2.5% by 100 basis points to put a lid back on their inflation, which is extremely high at 7.7%. And similar changes can be seen in US, who have a very high inflation rate of 9.1%.
Ross Transport's another business facing rising costs, including staff wages.
Tomorrow alone we could take on 2 mechanics and 10 drivers easily if they walked through our door.
Good morning.
Good morning. We do increases every year of 3%. This year we've pushed through a 6% increase.
Without enough drivers, 20% of its fleet of 60 trucks are stuck in the parking lot.
It just means the capacity that we can take every day is significantly reduced. So people are waiting longer to get their products, there's delays.
A national labour shortage causing supply chain issues and helping drive up inflation.
So there you go. It's a vicious cycle, as we mentioned before. You rise one thing, and then the consequences are then there is a ripple effect, and that it flows on to other parts of the things. So, where is the balance? Where is the happy medium? Why can't we just, keep going the way we are? And obviously, everything needs to increase. So, someone increases one thing, and then it has to then balance. Well, if you increase wages, that means the cost of running business goes up. Then the business puts the prices up on the thing. So what have we gained in the long term? We've just the figures are going up, but the affordability is something else that we really need to look at. Well, right now, let's take a look at this truck which had a crash in Melbourne's freeway and it's caused major disruption.
Chopper's just up there at the moment. You can probably see the carnage really that has been caused with that truck just split across the embankment. So this happened just after 2 o'clock this morning when we saw that B-double truck crash through the safety barrier on the off-ramp of Melrose Drive here, just off the Tullamarine Freeway. Now, we've heard already from the Assistant Fire Chief Officer Craig Brownlee, and he says that it was a pretty fully laden truck, so they're estimating that around 40 tonne of this fungicide was spilled. And as a result of that, they've got this exclusion zone that's set up, so obviously we don't want to go anywhere closer to it anyway because there are hazardous fumes, and there are around 5 suburbs that have been told to stay indoors. Parts of those areas are workers as well. There's a Caterpillar work site here. They've been told they won't go in there anytime soon.
So there you go. That is Melrose Drive. That is sounds very familiar. I think it's pretty close to Gowan Brae there in Melbourne. Well, right now, looking at the Hunter and what's happening with the locals there, the flooded in Hunter Valley people, happy to be voted off the Clifton Island. So let's take a look at that clip.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Welcome to the island.
We're having cocktail hour at 2. Bingo at 3.
For residents of Gillieston Heights, getting around is a whole new experience.
I've seen cats in cages go across. It's amazing.
This family is trying to hitch a ride out to make a flight back to India.
We're waiting because my parents are going back. Their flight on Saturday.
Up to 6,000 people have been stranded. Eugene Kun is one of many unable to get to work. But he's been kept busy, capturing the scale of the flooding from above.
It was really surreal to actually see the amount of water that has come through our valley so quickly.
People are running out of fuel, and for some, food is still scarce. These women put the call out for this food, which is all donated.
We got it on the boats and on the Unimogs, and we've got some here, but unfortunately we don't have enough for everyone.
It's been really hard to be here in the hub and just seeing the families, the elderly wander in and just say we're struggling. People who have had an orange to eat in 2 days, a can of baked beans.
SES boats and volunteers have been ferrying people and food, and residents have been supporting each other. The area was also badly flooded in 2015.
There's a lack of planning, there's a lack of understanding by state government that this is an area that this shouldn't happen.
Since last Wednesday, the only way in and out of Gillieston Heights has been by boat or by trucks like these, which are designed to drive through up to 1.2 metres of water. An island people are more than ready to leave. Kathleen Ferguson, ABC News, Gillieston Heights.
So an island within an island, as they say, and it's wonderful to see that the SES personnel are there on the ground and with that assistance. And yesterday there was a community consultation in looking into these responses and things that can be and should be done, and how the handling of these situations. And of course, people are blaming many local councils and other ones. But I mean, floods are floods, natural disasters are natural disasters. How we deal with it, what we do, is what we should be looked at. And the key factor was the warning mechanism, that how quickly and how soon can the warning be sent out to the areas that are going to be affected. Of course, it's always hard. No one has got a crystal ball, but I mean, look at all the facilities that are available to us today, all the technological advancement and the tracing methods. By that, surely they can say that this area is going to be flooded. People leave this area, leave that now. Here we are to assist you, leave this area. So those kind of things were discussed, and a paper will be produced by the research company. But we did take part in that research yesterday. Well, right now let's take a look at Northern Territory, where now again here is another point where the development. How do you stop development? When we look at things, people say you can't stop progress. Things will evolve. There will be things that are made. Areas will be redeveloped, and there will be new houses, new infrastructure put in, new shopping centers put in, and whatever in many areas where there was nothing there. But what about the people who are living in those areas and they're quite happy the way things are? What is going to happen to the future with the planned developments? Let's go to Northern Territory.
Around this tight circle, everyone shares a common concern.
Water is our life. Say in our culture, we live and breathe water.
It impacts the communities and the community that I live in and know a lot of people, and it impacts the environment, which is our lifeblood.
Collectively, they've travelled thousands of kilometres to get here, driving hours from as far as Ali Karang and Borroloola for a meeting with the government in the hopes of radical reform.
This is Manggarai land, and I am a Manggarai man, so on behalf of Manggarai people, I just want to say something.
Today we had represented at this group everybody from along the line of that whole system, and we are all concerned that there is inadequate planning and that there is a rush to create water allocation plans because fracking companies want production.
Concerned about water security amid a big push to develop the north, they called a meeting with Environment and Water Minister Lauren Moss.
It's happened all around the world before where, industries get priority over water and over-allocated, and, towns and communities and the environment suffer.
I'd hate to bring kids into the world, especially, I love Elsie Station, I love the river, I love going down, I love the tradition that me and my mum have to go out when it's cold, go out camping, have that security known, no matter where we go, you can go out fishing. I'd hate for them to be brought up knowing, water may not be there.
Water allocation plans for the Mataranka region and the Beetaloo Basin are due to be finalised within months, and there are big concerns they are not backed by science.
The closed meeting is happening behind me in the small town of Mataranka, south of Darwin. Just a few people were allowed to meet with the Minister today to have their voices heard and to try to effect change.
Their big ask? A place at the table.
We need science, and we need to inform the plans with that science.
It's always important that we look at how we're sharing information and how we do have that continuous conversation with the community, particularly around water security.
While the Minister didn't make any commitments today, she said she's taken on board the concerns. Roxanne Fitzgerald, ABC News.
Well, there you go. Well, one of the things is, where do you find that happy medium between development and bringing all the new and modern infrastructure to the areas, or should we leave the people the way they are, as long as they're happy the way they are? So, where do you find that happy medium? But the thing is, through evolution, we always tend to be changing things and making things supposedly better for everyone, to make better living conditions, bringing them in line with the cities. So where do you find that happy balance? Now, the other area that is of concern is the growing number of these COVID cases with the new variant. He is the Health Minister.
Minister, we're seeing higher COVID infections than during last year's lockdown, and those are obviously the ones we know about. Why aren't we talking any longer about mask mandates?
Well, the Chief Health Officers only met late last week again. They issued a statement on Friday that didn't go to mask mandates. I think we have moved beyond society-wide or broadly based mask mandates at least. Instead, they issued their very strong advice that if you're in an indoor crowded space and not able to socially distance, that they strongly encourage you to wear masks. Obviously, though, there are still targeted mask mandates where there's a high risk of vulnerability to severe illness in aged care facilities, in hospitals and the like, and also in areas of high transmission, crowded areas like public transport and aeroplanes. But I think deep into the third year of the pandemic, we're moving beyond these broad-based government orders or mask mandates, if you like, and instead targeting our mandates and more broadly giving good advice to employers and to the community to make their own informed decisions.
Well, let me ask you this: what level of infections could cause that to change? Is there a contingency plan to reconsider?
Well, the Chief Health Officers meet very, very regularly, almost on a weekly basis, to exchange information about what's happening in their jurisdictions and to issue what we hope is nationally consistent advice, and they'll continue to do that through this third wave. And this is going to be a tough few weeks for Australia. Case numbers are rising and hospitalisations are rising as well. That's a particular concern for all governments and for the broader community, which is why our priority action.
So there you are. It is a growing concern, and we will monitor the situation and bring to you news of that. Well, right now we will go to Fiji, Sri Lanka, and then, of course, the India Daily Report. So pressure grows on Albanese government to reinstate the COVID-19 payments.
One family, but not always in harmony. Pacific leaders have held their first face-to-face meeting in years. Their minds set on the existential challenge of climate change.
We are in unprecedented times, and this collective is at a critical juncture in its history.
They've welcomed Australia's push to co-host a UN climate conference with the Pacific. But Fiji's Prime Minister has told Australia he wants it to lift its climate ambition.
It requires that we end our fossil fuel addiction, including coal. That is our ask of Australia. That is our ask of New Zealand, the USA, India, the European Union, China.
But Anthony Albanese is standing firm.
We'll do exactly what we said we would do.
Pacific politicians and activists alike also want the Albanese government to stop approving new coal and gas projects.
I think that's what Australia needs to do, allow the Pacific Island countries to challenge them to further ambition.
But the Prime Minister insists that issue didn't come up.
Not one person today raised those questions.
Also largely unspoken, anxieties over China's rise and what it means for the Pacific. Beijing has pressed Pacific nations to sign a host of new economic and security deals recently, and there are growing signs of pushback.
They came here with their own prepared outcomes document, and it was that our members reacted against.
Solomon Islands is travelling in the opposite direction and has embraced Beijing. But after a warm meeting, Anthony Albanese says he believes Prime Minister Manasseh Sogavare when he says he won't allow China to establish a military base in the country.
I think you've got to deal with people at face value. We, of course, have made very clear what Australia's position is.
Today the forum also took some big steps towards resolving internal problems. Most of the Micronesian nations which threatened to quit in the wake of a leadership dispute have now decided to stay put after signing a compromise agreement orchestrated by Frank Bainimarama. Kiribati has quit the forum, but this afternoon its president finally returned Mr Bainimarama's calls and indicated he might be willing to reconsider. Dealing with Kiribati takes deft footwork.
And of course the door is open for Kiribati.
And attention to detail.
And Stephen Jedgetz joins me now from Suva. Stephen, this meeting has been a long time coming. Have leaders done enough to heal the Pacific Rift?
Look, it's difficult to say for certain. We probably won't know for a number of weeks, perhaps even months, whether Kiribati is going to be willing to return to the fold. But we probably shouldn't let the focus over the controversy surrounding Kiribati distract from what's really happened here. We have to remember that 18 months ago or so, it really did look like the Pacific Islands Forum was going to splinter and break apart. And that was a source of great anxiety for Pacific officials who worried that a split in PIF would leave small Pacific Island nations more exposed to geopolitical competition and the great powers, including China. That prospect is no longer in view. Perhaps all Pacific Island nations, excluding Kiribati, are now going to hold together. And no matter what happens with Kiribati, that still represents a big victory for Pacific diplomacy.
Stephen Jedgetts.
There you go. So that's a big win. And Kiribati, because they have been saying that members who came to this forum came with the predetermined outcome results. So the outcome is normally after the meeting and what's been discussed and what resolutions have been reached, not before even coming to the meeting. So he did have a point there. Well, right now let's go to Sri Lanka as we're sort of running out of time, and then we'll have to go to our daily India report.
Well, staying overseas, and Sri Lanka's parliamentary speaker says President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has resigned via email after landing in Singapore on a commercial flight. The news has been met with celebrations on the streets of the capital, Colombo, but the country has a very long road to recovery, as our correspondent Zoe Ford reports.
This is one of the many queues for petrol across Colombo right now. Sri Lanka is in the middle of an unprecedented economic crisis, and drivers are having to queue for up to 5 days for even just half a tank of fuel. At the moment, though, many of these drivers have abandoned their vehicles, and that's because there is a 17-hour citywide curfew in place. The Prime Minister is trying to calm the anti-government protest movement and force protesters from the government buildings that they've been occupying. So it means many drivers have gone home, but they'll be back to claim their place in the line once the curfew lifts. There have been curfews before in Colombo, but the language surrounding this one is the strongest yet. The police and the military have the power to take action to protect lives and state property. We have seen some military vehicles out and about, but most people have headed home, and those who are still out are generally being left alone. The protesters have left government buildings anyway, so many of them say the curfew's overkill.
We are already having enough problems, and they're still oppressing us. Like, they're still, I don't know what's the purpose of having the curfew now, because now it's all under control.
People don't care about it because they're suffering out there. So they can't stop this by putting a curfew or something.
Things are definitely calmer here now, but people remain angry with the Prime Minister and Acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe. An all-party group of MPs is expected to vote on a new president next week.
Since the new president be elected, we'll keep you updated once again and see what happens with that situation right there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and much more on India and the Indian diaspora. Indian Prime Minister and Dutch Prime Minister discussed India-EU ties and cooperation in the Indo-Pacific.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke with his Dutch counterpart Mark Rutte as the two leaders discussed India-EU relations, regional and global issues, including cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. During their telephonic conversation, the two leaders discussed India-Netherlands ties, including strategic partnership on water, cooperation in the key areas of agriculture, and potential for bilateral cooperation in high-tech and emerging sectors, according to the Indian Prime Minister's office. The two leaders also exchanged views on India-EU relations and regional and global issues, including convergence and cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, the statement said. In a tweet, Rutte said, "Good to speak once again to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi about the strong partnership between our two countries and about ways of expanding it. Naturally, we also discussed the war in Ukraine and its impact on matters like food security. Cooperation remains essential." Responding to Rutte on Twitter, Modi said that it was always a pleasure speaking to you, my dear friend.
India and China are likely to hold the 16th round of military talks on July 17th.
India and China are likely to hold the 16th round of high-level military talks on 17 July to resolve the issues in remaining friction points along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh, people familiar with the developments said on 13 July. The last round of the talks between the Indian Army and the Chinese People's Liberation Army took place on March 11th. The Indian side is expected to press for disengagement of troops as soon as possible in all the remaining friction points, besides seeking resolution of issues in Depsang, Pulch and Demchok. The situation in eastern Ladakh figured prominently in the last week's talks between Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in Bali. At the one-hour meeting in Bali on the sidelines of the conclave of the foreign ministers of the G20 nations, Jaishankar conveyed to Wang the need for early resolution of all the outstanding issues in eastern Ladakh. The eastern Ladakh border standoff between India and Chinese militaries erupted on May 5, 2020, following a violent clash in the Pangong Lake areas. Both sides gradually enhanced their deployment by rushing in tens of thousands of soldiers as well as heavy weaponry. As a result of a series of military and diplomatic talks, the two sides completed the disengagement process last year on the north and south banks of Pangong Lake and in the Gogra area. Each side currently has around 50,000 to 60,000 troops along the line of actual control in the sensitive sector.
UK and Singapore ask citizens to avoid travelling to Sri Lanka.
The United Kingdom, Singapore and Bahrain have asked their citizens to avoid non-essential travel to Sri Lanka following massive protests there. The island nation is experiencing a severe economic crisis which has led to shortages of basic necessities including medicines, cooking gas, fuel and food. Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who fled to the Maldives on Wednesday, is expected to fly to Singapore now. Protesters in Sri Lanka defied tear gas, water cannon and a state of emergency to storm the Prime Minister's office on July 13th after the country's embattled president fled overseas, with the crowd demanding both men step down in the face of an economic crisis. Meanwhile, a curfew imposed to restore some order was lifted on 14 July morning. Sri Lankans are waiting for the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa a day after he fled to the Maldives.
Indian Prime Minister to inaugurate Bundelkhand Expressway in Uttar Pradesh on 16th July.
For boosting connectivity in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the Bundelkhand Expressway at Kaitheri village in Orai Tehsil of Jalayu district on 16 July. The government has been committed to enhancing connectivity across the country, a key feature of which has been the work towards improvement in road infrastructure. The 296-kilometre, 4-lane expressway has been constructed at a cost of around 14,850 crores under the aegis of the Uttar Pradesh Expressways Industrial Development Authority and can later be expanded up to 6 lanes as well. It extends from NH35 at Gonda village near Bharatkoop in Chitrakoot district to near Kudrel village in Etawah district, where it merges with the Agra-Lucknow Expressway. It passes through 7 districts including Chitrakoot, Banda, Mahoba, Hamirpur, Jalayu, Oraiya and Etawah. The Bundelkhand Expressway will also give a major boost to economic development, resulting in the creation of thousands of jobs for the local people. Work on the creation of an industrial corridor in Banda and Jalayu districts next to the expressway has already started.
After at least 32 people died in rain-related incidents in the Indian state of Karnataka, the Chief Minister has released funds for the restoration of the basic structure.
As rains continue to hit different parts of Karnataka, Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai on 13 July said 32 people have lost their lives so far and 500 crores will be released immediately to restore the basic infrastructure that got damaged. The Chief Minister has been on a visit to rain and landslide-affected Kodagu, Dakshina Kannada and Udupi districts since 12th July and will be travelling to Uttara Kannada, Belagavi and other northern districts next week. Speaking to reporters after holding a review meeting with senior ministers and deputy commissioners of coastal districts in Udupi, he said a sum of Rs 500 crores would be immediately released to take up repair and restoration of roads, bridges, power lines and other infrastructure works in the flood-hit areas based on the report received from all districts. The Chief Minister said he is getting reports on estimates for damage from all districts, following which the state will request the union government for relief. Rains have increased this year in July, resulting in a flood-like situation in the coastal region. Rains have continued in several parts of Malnad and coastal Karnataka, causing a flood-like situation. Also, there have been several incidents of landslide and sea erosion.
Heavy rain alerts sounded in 8 states. Flood situation may worsen.
The Weather Office has predicted heavy to extremely heavy rainfall on 14 July in 8 Indian states along west coast, central and peninsular India. The flood situation is expected to worsen further, with water flowing above the warning level at 22 river sites. The flood situation has been witnessed in parts of Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Maharashtra, Assam and Uttar Pradesh. Besides, an inflow forecast has been issued for 31 dams and barrages in Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh. Delhi, however, witnessed only light rains with overcast conditions and high humidity for most parts of the day on 13 July. City has recorded 148.2 mm of rainfall since June 1st as against a normal 149.7 mm. In Maharashtra, schools and colleges will remain shut in Palghar, Pune city and neighbouring Chindwar on 14 July due to heavy rain forecast. A man and his daughter died in a landslide in Vasai city of Palghar district on July 13th. Besides, 4 persons were swept away by floodwaters in the Gondia district. At least 30 reservoirs in Gujarat state have crossed 70% capacity due to heavy rains. A red alert has been issued by the Met Department, which predicted heavy rainfall in Saurashtra and South Gujarat districts till Thursday. Rajkot, Gir Somnath, Jamnagar, Bharuch, Kutch and Navsari are among the parts of the state that have been receiving heavy rainfall.
India slaps Rs 4,389 crores notice on Chinese phone maker Oppo.
Chinese phone maker Oppo's India unit has been slapped with a notice for alleged Rs 4,389 crores of import duty evasion, the Indian Finance Ministry said on 13 July. A show-cause notice was slapped on Oppo India on July 8th after the recovery of documents during searches on its premises that indicated willful misdeclaration in the description of some imports and remittance of royalty and license fee to various MNCs, including those based in China. During an investigation of Oppo Mobiles India Private Limited, a subsidiary of the Guangdong Oppo Mobile Telecommunications Corporation Limited, the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence has directed customs duty evasion of around Rs 4,389 crores, the ministry said. Reacting to the development, Oppo India said it has a different view on the charges mentioned in the show-cause notice and will take appropriate steps, including legal remedies.
Vikram dubs for Mani Ratnam's magnum opus Ponniyin Selvam in 5 languages.
Mani Ratnam's magnum opus Ponniyin Selvam has already managed to create a lot of hype among the fans. The highly appreciated teaser of this epic historical drama has definitely added to the excitement. Now the makers have unveiled a video with the actor Chyan Vikram can be seen dubbing for the teaser in 5 languages. The project enjoys an ensemble cast including Vikram, Aishwarya Rai Bachchan, Jayam Ravi, Karthi, Trisha, Aishwarya Lakshmi, Sobita Dulipala, Prabhu, R. Sarath Kumar, Vikram Prabhu, Jairam, Prakash Raj, Rahman and R. Parthiban apart from others. Vikram will be seen in the titular role of Aditya, Karke Kalan and Aishwarya Rai Bachchan playing Nandini. Karthi essays the role of Mantya Thevan. Trisha will portray the character Kundavai and Jairam Ravi will be seen as Arun Mozi Varman. The film deals with the power struggle of Chola Empire during the 10th century. This flick is a cinematic adaptation of Kalki's evergreen Tamil novel from the 1950s. It is set in the ear-shattering period before the Ponniyin Selvam, son of River Kaveri, became one of the greatest emperors in Indian history. He later came to be known as Raja Raja Chola.
That's all in today's bulletin.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment. And don't forget that we are back tomorrow at 10 a.m. But before we go, we'll take a look at the functions and events taking place in Brisbane at this point in time. As we know that there are many events that have been planned, and right now almost every weekend is just full on when people look at what's actually happening. So there's a lot of functions and events that are taking place. Let's take a look at what's been planned for this weekend. And of course, if you are subscribing to the EDM from the Brisbane Indian Times, you will get that notification today as well. Well, here's the functions and events. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned before, that there's quite a lot happening this weekend, and it is good to see that functions and events are taking place. But ladies and gentlemen, once again, please always take care whenever you are attending public events and functions. Even though the restrictions are not there, the virus hasn't gone anywhere. And as we have seen and heard in the reports, that things are happening in many areas as well. So please be careful, take care. Get your flu shots done, and if you are eligible for that 4th vaccination, make sure you do get that in. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me.